Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of Melt. I'm Ritvika Gupta. Now, a campaign that has really caught my eyes recently is Ariel's Share the Load campaign. Hey Anant.
Hello.
Anant, have you seen the latest Ariel Share the Load campaign?
Of course I have, which is why I'm here. And I think it's a wonderful campaign because it builds on an insight which was kind of mined a few years ago. And this is not the first Share the Load campaign. There's a new version, say the 2019 edition of Share the Load.
Yeah.
So that's all it is. That's the newness. But the insight is not new and the campaign is not new.
Right. And you spoke to P&G and BBDO about this. So do you think brands can use purpose as a means to really stand out?
It's not just a brand manager who thinks so. It's consumers who are saying they're tired of seeing ads which sell and sell and sell. So ads have to have a deeper story. They have to have a deeper connect. And whether it's Nike or Like a Girl, or whether it is stuff that BBDO has done, which is Aviva Insurance Wall of Education. We've seen other P&G brands such as Gillette do Women Against Lazy Stubble.
Yeah.
So it's a far richer way for brands to connect with the consumer rather than saying, buy me, buy me, buy me.
So let's hear it from the brand's perspective.
Sure.
Let's get ready to melt with Sonali Dhawan.
Sonali, hello.
Hi, Anand.
So we got a new improved Share the Load. Yeah?
Thank you.
So the temptation of launching a new campaign every year as opposed to what you're doing, which is building on the past. So why are you building on the past? Why is that?
Basically, through the 20 years of marketing that I've learned, I mean, one of the things that I've learned the most is habit and mindset changes take time.
Right.
And it's actually the harder right to be more consistent with what you're trying to do. And what we're trying to do here with this campaign, it's not about selling more business or more cases, but it's really about changing mindsets of societies. And I think that requires multiple level of hits and multiple level of communication, looking at that issue from multiple lenses.
Right.
And that's what we're trying to do is every year we try and take a different lens or explore a different reason why things may be the way they are in an attempt to try and change that mindset.
Right.
So we've stuck with it. We think that there is a way to go to really change mindset on this one issue that we are picking up on, which is equality and gender equality at home.
Right. No, it's fantastic because up to now you've spoken for about a minute and a half. You haven't mentioned detergent or Ariel or P&G. You've not mentioned any of those. So tell me, the temptation for any marketer is to say, I want a pack shot, make my logo bigger, show applications, show use, consumption.
Yep.
Yeah, so this is a journey far away from that. So tell me what allows you to be brave enough to do that?
Firstly, I just want to really put that out there is when we start with saying that you're a brand and you exist, I think the brand must exist for something bigger than just selling its business. It must exist for a purpose and a cause.
Right.
When you do that, at least what we've seen in this particular case is when the brand can exist for a cause and try and make a change, it actually helps doing better business.
Right.
So for me, it's not about, it's not that brave to do because we know that when you do it, and I'm convinced when you do it, it's actually good for business in the long term. Right. That being said, what took us to take this cause up from a brand lens standpoint is laundry is a little bit more than laundry, right? It starts from the kitchen, it starts from the laundry, but really the conversation is about if there is a brand which can make it so easy for someone to really share the chores at home, why shouldn't that brand be Ariel taking this conversation? Since Ariel has actually always been about progressiveness. Many years ago, decades ago, we were the first brand which had husbands in a campaign doing laundry. It was a first, Ariel Husbands campaign. So it's a progressive brand. It really is a brand where the product is so good that anybody can actually get great laundry results. And the fact that brands have to be a force for social good is true not just for this particular instance in the brand, but a philosophy that P&G holds across all our brands which are in the market. So when you actually combine the two things, category relevance, brand relevance, and of course the full purpose of the company saying we need our brands to be a force for good, it leads you into the direction of Share the Load.
Right. Now, I buy your business case. You say, it's not just being good, but it means good for business.
Yes.
Now, when we see the commercial, which, I have seen, there also the temptation to, for example, introduce a washing machine or a hidden pack shot somewhere early in the film is old school marketing. You've stayed away from that. It's come right at the end of the commercial, or call it commercial communication. So tell me, there must be pushback from people who say, hey, isko to dikha do, usko dikha do. There must have been.
Yeah, including me myself. We start with Ariel. Actually, we start with the Ariel frame as we start the conversation. But if you look at it, it isn't any less related to Ariel when we do that. But we did start actually with the frame of Ariel share the load. So the temptation was there. It was important for us to make sure that the conversation is recognized as one which Ariel is sparking. But that's not the reason for the conversation. So I think that's when you balance the need for, is there a reason for a pack to be there? Is there reason for laundry as a context to be there? If it is, then it must be brought. If it isn't, I can put it there, but I can guarantee you our consumers will discard it. If there's no reason for it, they will discard it. I can put any number of pack shots. If there's no reason for it to exist, I don't think in this cluttered world people pay any attention.
You've said it's not a sort of hit and run, it's a slow burn, it's habit change. And habit change by definition is not even 2 years or 3 years, it could take 15, 20 years. So let's suppose your business metrics, your tonnage increase or whatever those are met. What are the non-business metrics that will satisfy you?
For me, one is actually, did it bring about a change?
So how would you measure that?
We, I mean, we have Nielsen conducting surveys which we commission for them every year, measuring what is the people's or society's response to various facets. For instance, if I take one number, when we started this campaign, 79% of urban men who were married thought...
This is when Sharad did it?
Yes, when Sharad started it 3 years ago. At that time when we did the survey, 79% of men thought that household chores are only a woman's job. This number fell to around 63%, and this year when we did the same survey, it's 52%.
This is a sort of urban survey.
It's urban survey across multiple cities, large base, like any Nielsen big city survey. This year that number is 52%. So the drop from 79% to 52% is a big drop. So that's one metric is, are you making a difference in mindset, right? I think the second metric that I look at is what is the kind of image equity and connection with a brand that consumers are feeling. That translates into business. But that's also a measurement that we take otherwise. Is what do you think this brand stands for? What are the attributes you associate to that brand? And we're seeing those attributes taking a big uptick for Ariel, as is seen as a much more new generation progressive brand which stands for something which is about a great future and great innovation. So we are seeing some of those metrics really move up on the brand.
You spoke about the Nielsen metrics, their tracking and whatever. Now I'm asking you about anecdotal tracking. It is you, Sonali, in her personal capacity as a mother, wife, friend. What is it that you would like to see happen at the end of the campaign? Or
no, I'll tell you my personal one, and I'll talk to you about what we see people write to us. And we actually have many stories come across. Just now, recently we had one woman writing about how when she went into as a new bride, her husband taught her how to do laundry, and that's because his mother had taught him, because he was the only son, and she had taught him how to do this. And when she shared this story to us, we published it. The mother-in-law felt such validation for what she had done, And I think that just brought the family together. In my personal thing, I have a son and a daughter. My daughter is much older, so by natural instinct, what happens is whatever you're trying to tell your daughter, the son will pretty much stand there and he'll pick up. But on really this whole thing that I am very deliberate, and he picks it up, is when I teach my daughter, he's sitting there, I don't say I'm teaching her because it's she. This is the older child, this is the younger child. Older child, I'm teaching you, younger child, watch and listen. You have more time to pick up. And he actually has started to do a few things, like he can warm things in his microwave. He can say, okay, if this is a laundry basket, I know which button to press. He doesn't do the laundry, he's just 8. But he knows that the expectation is that. And my husband does. My husband is one of 2 sons. My mother-in-law had 2 sons, and she set really the right examples for her sons. So I think my kids look at what happens at home, and then they learn. And this happens in all households, I'm sure. So what my son is probably one of the staunchest feminists you will see at age 8.
What you're doing is more SEC-AB urban kind of habit change. But real problems lie in SEC-CDE. So who picks up that mantle? Maybe Ariel is not the right brand. But do you see that gap also? Because that's where the habit is far more ingrained for centuries, let alone generations.
No, you are absolutely right. More needs to be done there, right? What we do find though is today, in today's world, things like WhatsApp, social media, it is quite insidious. It goes all the way down till rural India. So when there is the right message, a woman may not be able to say it in that strata, but she can easily forward this message as a means, as a mouthpiece for her, right? And we are seeing this happen all the time. Right, that they look at this film or a film like this as a means to say what they want to say. But more than that, I think what we will be looking at, and we will be doing this and you'll see it come to life, is we want to make sure that all our brands, Ariel included, and other brands which are even more deeper penetrated, we pick up these issues and actually do grassroots work, Ariel included. So this is definitely something where you move from philosophy to acts, and definitely we would be committed to doing that.
Sure. We've seen the digital film.
Yes.
Now, I'm presuming there's a lot more to follow.
Yes.
You know, which is perhaps activations on ground.
Yes.
I have no idea. So tell me, what else is a consumer going to be bombarded with?
Look, I can't reveal at this stage exactly
what you can reveal,
details,
please do.
Right?
No, what you can't, you can't.
But yes, we are looking at a lot of influencers to pick up this cause and share their personal stories, really make sure that they make a difference. You will see on-ground events. You'll see a lot of father-daughter events, son-mother events, where we are looking to take this thought and this movement down to the grassroots. So you'll see a lot more on-the-ground activation on it. There are multiple tie-ups with other like-minded companies that we have, where we want to actually co-create this as a movement with like-minded companies, whether it be in the area of matrimony, whether it be in the area of actually garment production. So we are looking at multiple such tie-ups. I mean, one instance that I can already talk to because it's in the public sphere is we actually tied up with the Navneet Prakashan. You see, most of our textbooks, if you see a picture of a mother, if they want to teach a child, this is a mother, then she will be sitting at home. They want to see a doctor, you will have a male doctor. They want to see a nurse, there will be a female nurse. So there's a lot of stereotyping that inadvertently our books do. So we have tied up with Navneet Prakashan to create more gender equal books, even for kids who study and who are in 3 years old, 4 years old, 5-year-olds.
So
the imagery changes, right? You need to have as many pilots shown as women as you have air hostesses shown as women, right? In many of these books. So we've done some work like that, and we are looking to see how many partners we can find to be taking this message actually to more and more people.
I'm going to close with one simple question. So the visual cues that I see of the younger generation, the habit change needs to come in the older generation. So how do you do that?
See, older generation is a more difficult generation to change. So what we are trying in our films we are trying to raise the question on conditioning. And even in the last film, it was the father who realizes that he is an example for the younger generation. This time also, the mother realizes that she needs to probably be expecting something different and more from her son. So we believe that actually when we talk to this generation, it's about what legacy are you passing to the younger generation. So it's not very preachy. It's much more on self-realization. And it is targeted to actually the current and maybe even slightly older generation, because that's our intent, right? When as we question conditioning, it's actually the older generations and what they do and expect which drives conditioning for the next generation. And those are exactly the questions we are raising.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Anant.
You're watching Melt. We were talking about Ariel's Share the Load campaign, and we just saw a brand perspective. Right now, we'll be speaking to the agency. Anand, so you spoke to Josy Paul to get an agency perspective. So what did he say?
So first, it's not the agency perspective, it's the creative agency perspective. Because now in any campaign, which we will certainly see with Share the Load, there'll be 20 agencies involved. We'll have a media agency, a PR agency, a digital agency, a social agency, all these will be there. So we're getting the perspective of the team that created the core thought behind this campaign, which is the BBDO perspective. So that's what we speak to Josy about, the genesis of this idea and where it could go.
All right, so let's understand more. Let's get ready to melt with Josy Paul.
Hi, Josy.
Hello. Hi.
So, you know, every year I look forward to a new Share the Load campaign, because now it's become one of those runners for the best continuing campaign of the year, you know. Unfortunately, Cannes doesn't have a best continuing campaign, nor do Abbeys, nor The Curious. That's one of the sad parts. But tell me why you've decided to reinvest in an insight which you sort of unearthed some years ago.
Yeah, Anant, I'd like to start from the beginning. This was 2015. We were approached by P&G to do a sort of digital campaign to create brand love. And one of the things they told us that's working for them and could do better was this whole notion of a one wash wonder, which is that with one wash, you can sort of clean away any stain.
Right.
But what we did was we asked them, and it's a process of briefing. It's an up and down thing that happens. It's not just about a brief, it's about briefing. And through these sessions, we actually said, if in one wash you can do it, can anyone do it?
Right.
And they said, yes, anyone can do it. And that's how we re-articulated the proposition to one wash that anyone can do.
Right.
And once we, underlined the anyone can do, we went through a whole process of understanding social context.
Right.
Well, what is anyone can do? And that led us to finding an interesting survey that showed that Indian men did the least amount of household work.
Right.
There was a statistics to it. And with that, we went back to the client. As I said, it was an up and down thing. And we showed 4 concepts around that time. And the Share the Load idea was the first one that we went with. Yeah.
Right. So this started off, like you said, as a digital campaign, not as a broadcast television campaign.
Yes.
It was a digital idea.
Yeah.
So what caused it to go out of digital and into mainstream, which it has become since 2015 itself?
Well, I mean, there was a lot of traction to the idea, and one of the things P&G did really well was sort of, bring publicity and bloggers into it.
Right.
And they got a lot of partners through media partners, etc., who sort of amplified this idea. And then they found that they didn't have to amplify it too much.
Right.
The first campaign itself started touching a chord. And a lot of content was generated through newspapers and magazines and television channels who picked it up and began to sort of talk about it.
Right. So obviously, because of the product focus, up to now your Share the Load that I have seen is by and large surrounding the wash area.
Yeah.
So, but Share the Load is something, you talked about the survey which said that Indian men do hardly any housework.
Yeah.
Are there legs for this to go beyond just washing clothes to other parts of housework that men could contribute to?
Absolutely. I mean, you can, because Share the Load now has become such a strong sort of connect with Ariel that Ariel does have the confidence and will eventually broaden it out. But as of now, we're still sticking close to laundry because in a way there is an objective as well of keeping our competitive edge.
Right.
So, but at a content level, at engagement level, at places where people want to interact with the idea, I think there's great opportunity to open it up.
Right. Josy, to go to BBDO rather than just Share the Load.
Yeah.
There's a lot you've done which is cause marketing, purpose marketing, movements and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So what is it? Is it that you get a brief and you say, I will not do an ad for this, but I will look for something much deeper than just a commercial? Is that the starting point?
Yeah, we find that that's a great observation. We find that today context is what people are involved with. Content is important and we say content is king, but context is King Kong.
Right.
We feel that people they connect with the context. And the context is what they push around.
Right.
The content is just the torchlight that shines on the context. And we find that brands can do a little more than just what you see at the top of advertising. You just go a bit under the skin of advertising and you find such beautiful, sort of soulful connections that brands can have with people. And that's all that we're trying to do, get a little deeper, as you correctly said.
Right.
It may be a cause, it may not be a cause, but it is going a bit deeper.
Right. Now, you need a brave marketer also to do this because marketers, by and large, go for the safe, and I don't blame them. Yeah. Large product window, make my logo bigger and try and have as many pack shots as possible. So it takes a brave client. What does it take for your client to be so brave? Because there's been continuity on the BBDO side, there's been change on the P&G side.
Yeah. So that's a great observation. You spoke about continuing campaign. Yes, there have been changes at our end, there have been changes at P&G end, but I think the conviction of this idea and how it's working for P&G is so strong that even when we speak to Sonali, it sounds like she's been doing this forever.
Right.
It's with that depth that somebody like Sonali briefs us or is part of the briefing process. And this work that we've done is essentially a team work. It was so much of listening to what Sonali's story is and stories in the room. As a man, I may never feel it fully. And yet, we could understand what women were going through because of the amazing women in the room who were sharing their stories, including Sonali.
Right. So, what next for Share the Load? Now, for example, you've almost established that there will be a 2020 edition and a 2021 edition, almost.
Yeah.
Because it seems to be a timeless kind of insight.
Yeah.
So, what next for this?
So that's what. So now it'll all, again, of course, depend on the survey as well. We're trying to see how we can shift the needle, right? So that the whole idea is not just let's just share the load. It's share the load for what? It's share the load so that, there can be happy households, so that, when a woman's doing well, a man's also able to understand that and contribute together. And it's that, because currently what is happening is, women have been taught to, really push themselves and do so many things, but there comes a point where there's almost a different kind of ceiling. It's not a glass ceiling, it's one sort of social ceiling almost, where the man's not able to fully get it, and thereby because he's not able to fully share the load. I think when they do that, the whole social structure will rise and become stronger. And that feels like, hey, can a brand really do it? But I think deep inside we feel maybe we can push it a bit.
Right.
That's what we're doing. And therefore, I think this can go on.
Sure.
Yeah?
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
And that was the conversation. Anant, do you think this ad will win at Cannes?
Well, I'll say it will. I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. It will win, because it's got all the elements say, that go into an award-winning campaign that excites juries. So it's a movement, it's a continuing campaign. So it's not a new insight, but it's old as the hills, but true as the hills as well. And I think they've nudged it further. We've already seen a lot of media talking about it. I think you will see primetime news also discuss this. We are discussing it. So it makes for a great case study. And when you get a great case study and a great campaign, I think it's a shoo-in. I'd say the minimum is a short list. The maximum depends on how the amplification happens in the next few months.
With that, it's a wrap on this episode of Melt. You can watch all our content on our social media platforms. I'll see you next week, same time, same place. Goodbye.